What kind of sponsors do you think would be the most appropriate for our audience?
Oh, it's all the big military contractors, you know.
Oh, really?
Anduril and
Raytheon,
probably Exxon and
Palantir.
big oil, petrochemical,
multinational
conglomerate sort of is the level I'm thinking. But you know, I mean, we're listening. Welcome to Backtracking, the show where three old friends take a second listen to classic bands, influential albums, track by track. I am J. William Hall.
And I'm Dan Fiden. We'll be taking this journey together, providing context both personal and historical on some legendary bands. For this, our third season, we've selected 15 of our favorite albums that we think deserve a good old-fashioned backtracking.
Backtracking is the greatest podcast. Raph and JW Dan make this podcast every week. Backtracking is the greatest podcast. Get ready for podcast action.
J. William Hall, we are back once again.
Unless this is all a simulation.
No, well, listen, don't get me started because the rabbit hole is so deep.
I believe you.
So deep.
I believe you. I'm not ready to go there. I've got enough rabbit holes that I'm lost in that, I can't add one more to the mix right now. Too many holes. That's right.
I know. It's so true. But listen, we are here. We're talking. It's just the two of us again.
Yeah.
Roth, busy schedule, making things happen, moving and shaking.
Right.
He and I,
he shakes.
He does. He shakes. He's shaky. He's a little shaky.
He's in the earthquake capital, California.
He is. That's right.
You know,
that's right.
Right on that San Andreas fault. Everyone is shaking. Right?
I know. I don't know if you've watched the trailer for that new Netflix made-for-TV movie La Brea, but I'll tell you, it looks like they have a little sinkhole problem there in Los Angeles.
You know, scientists say the big one any day now.
Yeah,
you know,
really
overdue, in fact.
Yeah, but you know what? If you spend your whole life listening to science, get yourself nowhere. No, but Roth is going to be back. He is going to be back in a few weeks after we tackle this album. There is going to be a special season 1 bonus episode, perhaps more than one episode. We'll see that we record when we go to see Rush on the big reunion tour in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, you know what you should do?
What?
Just record the show. Like, play the show as the podcast.
You think? I don't
think.
Is that illegal?
Podcast. That's fair use. It's your podcast. It's fair use. You've done a whole season on Rush. You're not trying to make money off of this.
Yeah, that's right. No, well, we definitely are going to do a little bit of a kind of maybe a pre and post show conversation, but that'll be happening in a few weeks. We also have a number of Roth selections that we need to tackle through the rest of the season.
That's right.
Including Bare Naked Ladies, who we've talked about.
Right.
I know that you're looking forward to that one. But, J. William Hall.
Yeah.
Today, it's one of your picks.
That's right. This episode is dedicated to one of my favorite 5 underrated albums of all time. The band is Dumptruck. The album is For the Country. It came out in 1987 on Big Time Records. We have conducted an interview with Dumptruck leader Seth Tiven. Dumptruck is still a going concern, but it's on a much smaller scale now, a more local scale. He's in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah.
But the Dumptruck album that we're talking about was created by a band that was called a Boston band from the 80s, though, you know, the truth is some of them were from, like, you know, New Hampshire or Connecticut, and, you know, they weren't all from Boston, but I think Boston was the scene that they sort of rose to prominence on.
Yeah. I want to talk about the Boston scene. I certainly want to talk about Dumptruck. This has been a super fun backtrack for me. However, J. William Hall, we can't just go running into Dumptruck
not?
all willy-nilly, because we got to do some housekeeping first. You know that we have to do housekeeping.
Chores. Oh,
this is a professional podcast.
Do your chores.
You know, maybe these amateur podcasts out there can just get away with, just go with it. Just do it. No housekeeping needed.
Pretend like no house. Pretend the rest of the world doesn't exist.
I'm just going to leave the bills unpaid. I'm just going to leave the toilet seat up, dishes in the sink.
Nothing to do but my podcast. Think about my podcast all the time. No.
That's right. You have got to do some housekeeping. Okay, it's gonna be a quick one, and one of the elements I already snuck in. It was the news that we're gonna do a special Rush episode. Me and Roth face to face together again at the concert. That's right. It's gonna be a fun time, and I got a new haircut for the concert. It's kind of like a schlong. Like long in the back.
See, I'm looking at you, but you're wearing your baseball cap, so I can't see the haircut.
It's the haircut that basically I had when I first started listening to Rush in about 8th grade.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I wear it with pride. The schlong is back.
I know.
As far as I'm concerned, I see dudes rocking the schlong. I'm sitting on the bus. Trying to get home after a hard day downtown. And, these dudes rocking a schlong walking around campus up here on OSU High Street. You know what I'm saying?
So what you're saying, J. William Hall, is that you're spending a lot of time looking at dude schlongs.
I guess you could say that in so many words.
All right, so listen. That we're not here to talk about my schlong. We're here to talk about... We're here to talk about the housekeeping. Second thing, this is a housekeeping item that I am actually bringing forward myself. This is unusual, but I've checked in the playbook and it's allowed. In the episode that we covered, side A of Gang of Youth's album, Angel in Real Time.
Oh boy, what did we screw up?
No, I screwed something up, not relevant to the album. We were talking about why, you had asked why I thought the album kind of, the band wasn't bigger than they are already in the US. And I kind of said, I was trying to say that the album is hard to define. And I said, it's neither feast nor famine, which is like not a phrase. What I was trying to say, and for some reason couldn't find, was it was neither fish nor fowl. Okay? And
okay.
I know how much it bothers me when that happens and I hear somebody do that. The kind of malaprop use of an idiom.
I probably thought I was just too dumb to understand your metaphor. I was like, wow, it's neither too much or too little. It's somewhere in the middle. That's why it wasn't a big hit. It made perfect sense to me. Yeah.
No, it was purely me misspeaking. This is like when somebody says, I was with somebody who said they were going to take the 50,000 square foot view, which I thought was like a really funny one. Anyway, I did one that was that, and I felt terrible. So my apologies. Now, Dumptruck. We got to get into this record.
Listen, let's get back to Dumptruck. Now, do you need me to give you a brief recap of where Dumptruck was at in their career when they released this album?
Yeah, I think, let me think.
I mean, we have a full interview with Seth Tiven.
Okay.
And
we do.
He delves deeply into the history of Dumptruck.
He does, and that interview is going to be playing next week.
After our Side B episode.
No, after Side A, we're going to put this one. We're going to release the Side A, interview Side B.
All right, well, here's a disclaimer. As we're talking about this album, we may reveal
Yeah.
Juicy tidbits
Yeah.
revealed in the interview. And, I don't want to give too much away. But if it happens, it happens. Hey, that's life, right?
Yeah. Well, I think just to get us started, it would be great if you could run through kind of a basic history of Dumptruck, but stop a little bit short of the specifics around the recording of this album and everything, okay?
Yeah, no problem. I won't just keep going on and on and on about it.
Yeah, because there's a couple of
away.
high-level topics I want to tackle here before we get into the deets.
Okay, so listen. Dumptruck.
Mm-hmm.
Seth Tiven.
Yeah.
Originally from Connecticut, I believe. Yep. Him and a guy, Kirk Swan. They meet college age Boston. They form this group Dumptruck. It's kind of a songwriting duo. Like they both write their own songs, and then the other one plays bass on the one guy. So they kind of write an album's worth of songs. Yeah. They get their buddy Mark Mulcahy, who is also well known, subsequently in his own right as the leader of Miracle Legion. They were a band of some indie renown. Yeah. He was playing drums for them. Friends studio. They just made this sort of demo tape almost, like just to give to friends. Yeah. D is for Dumptruck. Yeah. This is their first album. And it ends up becoming kind of like a college radio, people like it, it's sort of double guitar a la Television, a little bit post-punk, a little bit REM jangle in there, a little bit Joy Division-y kind of, sour vocals, but, two songwriters, right? So they do their next album in North Carolina. Oh, God damn it. The website is failing me right at the fucking moment I need it to be right. Oh, Positively Dumptruck.
That's right.
So they sign with
and
big time. Well,
what year is this?
Okay, so D is for Dumptruck came out in 83. Yeah. Originally. Incas Records, which was like, I think Mulcahy's like side hustle kind of thing. Yeah. But like college radio likes it, and like they're able to play live, and they get kind of like a full band together. Sean Devlin on drums. Yeah. And, they get a bass player. They go through a series of bass players.
There's a revolving lineup in this band, really.
Yeah. At first it's just kind of like bass players, I think. They might have had a different drummer originally too, but Sean Devlin becomes kind of their long-term drummer, and they go to, Don Dixon, who famously helped produce early REM in North Carolina. I can't remember the name of the fucking studio now, but anyway, they go down there, and it's like a hot place right now, and all the jangle guitar bands like want to record there and get that magic on it. And Positively Dumptruck, to my ears, you can hear that, that it's leaning into the REM-ish-ness of the band. So anyway, they tour hard on this album, and the touring wears them out, and it breaks up the band. Kirk Swan leaves, bass player leaves. I think it's Spike Priggin. But, it's important to note that they're all like good friends to this day, and like there's no animosity now. But two of them left. So they had to recruit new guys sort of quickly because there was money for a third album. And so Seth Tiven was like, I got to do this album. I got to get a band together. And it ends up being a guitar player named Kevin Salem, who goes on to have his own solo singer-songwriter career. And,
Tom Shad.
Tom Shad is recruited as the bass player, and I think it's just like friends of friends kind of deal. Like they just find kind of replacements, and this is the lineup that is only together for like a few months before they have to go to Wales to record with Hugh Jones, who is a producer of indie renown. He's produced Echo and the Bunnymen. He's produced Modern English. I think those were his big credits.
Simple
to that.
Minds, I think he produced.
Yeah, he goes on to produce like a who's who of like big indie college rock bands, of the 80s and 90s. And so, this lineup has only been together for a few months, and they've played live and they've honed this group of songs, but it's Seth Tiven's show now. Like, these are all of his songs, like his vision or whatever for the album. So that's where we're at. Now, what do you want to talk about?
All right. So I think it's impossible to talk about this band. At least it's going to be impossible for me to talk about this band without talking about Uncle Tupelo.
Sure.
And I have a question for you, and then I want you to talk a little bit about the timeline of the two bands. But the first question I have for you is
this a sidetrack in addition to a backtrack?
No. But you're pretty versed in the Tupeloiana. So, did you discover Uncle Tupelo or Dumptruck first?
Oh, Dumptruck, definitely.
Okay,
like this album came onto my radar when it was still new.
Okay, so you basically were listening to this when it came out.
I mean, within the first year of it coming out.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is 87, 88. Yeah, Tupelo did not come onto my radar until probably 92. Yeah. And, and it even took me probably a year to get back to their first album or whatever. So, and what, No Depression was 89, I want to say?
Yeah. I think so. Or I think the first thing, they first kind of were together, I want to say 87 or 88. But yeah. I mean, Anodyne came out in 92, right?
This is, or maybe 93. I don't, or maybe 94 even.
You're right.
Yeah, 94.
Yeah, because the March album. Okay, so sorry, I'm taking us.
What you're getting to is the influence of Dumptruck and this sound encapsulated on this album on the alt country movement of the 90s. Yeah, this is yes, I agree with you 1,000%. I don't feel like a lot of bands name checked them. Because I feel like I would have been like, oh yeah, I know who Dumptruck is too, but I will say there was one band of that 90s alt country boom, and this is a loose connection, but the Pernice brothers. Yeah.
Scud Mountain Boys.
Yeah, Joe Pernice had been Scud Mountain Boys, which was definitely part of the alt country kind of thing in the 90s. And Pernice Brothers was definitely a step in a different direction, but I saw them when they were touring the first album at a little bar in Chicago, and I don't remember the name of it because I never saw another show there. Yeah. But I remember, watching them and they're doing their set, and suddenly they start playing Island off of this album. Yeah. And they were both Boston bands. I talk with Seth Tiven about this in the interview. Yeah. But I was just like, because like I felt like Dumptruck had already been like somehow forgotten, by the like alt zeitgeist or whatever of the moment,
But like this gets to, I think, the core of the question that I have, and I don't know if you know the answer, but like, did Dumptruck just kind of totally independently and in an unnoticed way develop this album in a very similar strain to Tupelo, but like no one ever knew? There's no influence because like they're you know what I mean? No one ever heard it from like the, Tupelo kind of. No. I mean,
I think they definitely heard it.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I say this, not because I feel like, oh, Jeff Tweedy has said,
because it's not called the Dumptruck. Like the magazine is not called.
No,
it
wasn't
for the country. It's called No Depression.
It's called No Depression, but that magazine was founded, some years after the album, and I think at that stage in 1994 or whatever, it was decided Uncle Tupelo invented alt country.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
but their Dumptruck wasn't the only one. You know, some of these other sort of Boston, a little bit under the radar college rock bands like Miracle Legion and Big Dipper, and they were kind of playing around with a little bit of country-ish,
Really?
you know, stuff as well. Like, you know, throughout the 80s, like there were other guitar bands doing country licks, or you know, on the West Coast there was like Green on Red, and
yeah, and I mean AMC was around at this point, right?
Like AMC had you know, you know, like there were
okay.
So it
and
was
you
happening
think there was
around
enough
the country.
interaction between? Again, you have to kind of take us back to like for
Well-
the younger listeners. This is pre-internet, so it's not like a local band in Boston got heard easily by a local band in San Francisco. You know what I mean? They would
Yeah.
have to be big enough that they were like on tour and play together or
Yeah.
have records out, right?
I mean, Dumptruck was definitely touring the country, like, because I remember Seth telling us about, like, you know, the tour for Positively Dumptruck had taken them to the West Coast, you know, so, you know,
Okay,
big
so
time,
I think you've made your argument, and I think it's a great argument. So my question to you as a follow-up is, when you think about like your love for that strain of music, and you definitely love that strain of music, right? Like this kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
alternative country stuff from the 90s.
Yes.
Like, do you think that Dumptruck was your entree into that aesthetic?
You know, I kind of, I mean, I do, you know, because I think that they were the first, like, you know, quote unquote alternative band that I heard on our cool Pittsburgh alternative station of the mid 80s, WXXP, double X. And, yeah, that's where I heard Going Nowhere. I think that was my entrance, at least where they entered my radar, because it was the pedal steel.
Yeah.
That stuck out so prominently.
Yeah,
and
it
was
totally
like, wow,
sticks out.
That was different than anything else. And, you know, like when I was a little kid, my dad listened to like 70s country, kind of, you know, Conway Twitty and, you know, Merle Haggard. And I don't know, just like mainstream, like 70s country kind of stuff. And so like I kind of had a little bit of like, oh, those sounds are in there, but like, you know, I was listening to cool like alternative. You know, I was listening to Smiths and U2 and Echo and the Bunnymen.
There was no twang. Yeah, I mean, you have this whole other strain, which is this very kind of like UK underground strain.
Yeah, they felt it didn't feel like country was a neat fit for alternative music. You know, and so this was definitely the first album that I think embraced as kind of like, yeah, I like the pedal steel, you know, on that song.
Yeah.
You know, and probably, it laid a sort of a foundation for me that when that next wave of alt country bands really hit in the 90s, it was like, yeah, I was right there with it, you know? And, you know, it's interesting because I think that, you know, there's a certain magic on this album that owes a lot to this specific lineup. Yeah. And this is the only Dumptruck album on which this specific lineup exists, you know? And I think that there's a certain, you know, element to the mix of the producer, Hugh Jones, you know, in you know, Rockfield Studios, like in Wales, like, so, you know, just everything kind of came together. You know, the songwriting is really strong across the Dumptruck catalog, you know, but there's something about the production of this that I think makes it stand out in a way to my ears. Yeah. But, you know.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so let's get back to the story of them. They're about to go to Wales to record with Hugh Jones, well-known kind of like UK pop alternative producer at Rockfield Studios, which has come up more than once on this podcast. Season 1, there is a stretch of amazing Rush albums in the 70s that are recorded at Rockfield.
Okay.
It's including, I believe, Hemispheres, which is my personal favorite Rush album.
All right.
So there we are.
So there's a connection. We are making the connect. Listeners are like, what does Rush have to do with Dumptruck?
That's right.
This is what it has to do with Dumptruck.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. All right, so they're about to go into the studio. Take it. But, let's make sure that we don't spoil all of Seth's stuff.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything, but first of all, it's a big deal that they were like the label was like, we're going to send you to Hugh Jones at Rockfield.
Yeah.
That automatically was like, it elevated kind of everything, like pressure plus budget plus, they were able to really go in and do it right. I don't think it's giving away too much to say it was a good experience for Seth, right?
Yeah. 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 I think that's right.
I think things went really well, and they produced an album to be proud of.
And all right, so the band, you already talked about it. Kevin Salem, Tom Shadd on bass. The other musician that I think is probably worth mentioning because studio player, but makes a big impact, I think, on the perception of the sound of the band. B.J. Cole on the pedal steel.
Yeah.
If you spent, I don't know if you spent time looking at the other records that he's played on, but he has played on everything. I mean, he played on Madman Across the Water, okay? Like Procol Harum, T-Rex. Like, he is like,
Yeah, he goes back. Yeah,
he goes back, clear, and this is like a studio pro. It seemed to me like he probably played instruments other than pedal steel as well. I saw, I think, a sitar credit, but probably worth mentioning him. All right, so they record the record. I will say, again, my impression, I knew nothing about Dumptruck, okay? I had never heard Dumptruck prior to backtracking this album with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so my first reaction to the production is it's very big sounding. You can hear the Simple Minds kind of a feel.
Well, is it the 80s-ishness?
Yeah, but it's very reverby, very big room sounding, kind of like. And there's multiple, I think, really stereotypically 80s sounds, but this to me feels very much like Simple Minds. The production sound.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Simple Minds was like an arena-sized band.
Yeah.
Like they played big music. We talk about U2
exactly.
and, like Dumptruck was upping its game, with this album. Like they were shooting for, I think, that level, arena level.
Yeah.
Like this is not necessarily, I mean, not the entire album across the board, but like when it hits big.
And this is about the same time that REM is kind of doing that as well.
Yes. They get a ton of comparisons to REM, and I think that's totally fair. Guitar-led rock, 4-piece rock combo.
Yeah, but REM, like right at around this time, 1986, 87, is kind of like graduating to kind of a bigger mainstream pop sound kind of, right?
they kind of elevated album after album after album, like incrementally. And I would say that Dumptruck was fighting in the same class at that point.
It's interesting. So I haven't listened to the earlier Dumptruck sound albums, but it like, I think the production lacks a little bit of a rough indiness to it, or a presentness that, in my impression, I was like, I think maybe these songs would have worked better if it were recorded that way. I I know it's a weird. It's just it's a thought, right? And I think some of this is because once I kind of was like thinking about them in Tupelo, I spent a lot of time thinking like, okay, what is it about Tupelo that made them more well known? You know what I mean? And one thing is I think the Tupelo productions tend to be a little rough edged. They feel they sound garagey to me, and this does not sound garagey.
No, this is definitely not garagey.
Yeah.
And they came from a garagey place. Like that first album is like 8-track, just rough it kind of recordings. And, then there's the Don Dixon production, which, sounds of its era as well. The songwriting is definitely there, but the production has this very kind of almost too clean kind of sound to it. So this definitely has like big budget, big full 80s, bigness to it. I think that's fair. I don't think it suffers from it as much as Simple Minds does, or some of U2 from that era, to me, it sounds a little more timeless than that, but it could just be that I love it so much.
I think it sounds, I think it sounds, I mean, listen, overall, I think this is a terrific album. I think it's really, really good. And
it almost hits a center place, like Hugh Jones famously did some early Echo and the Bunnymen, which was famous for its very like post-punk, very brittle, angular kind of guitar sound. And then, he did Modern English, which was this super soft, like almost like shoegazy, like dreamy kind of sound. And Dumptruck is somewhere in the middle of that, I would say.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah, but well, I think we'll get into it as we go through the track by tracks. But I mean, I think some of the things that like are noticeable or more noticeable to me is like the drums like are very just like resonantly reverby, like everything is a little like they were just recorded in a big room with not a lot of dampening in it or something. And I think the drums are good on this album, but they have that kind of a sound.
So if there are aliens, interdimensional aliens, who can rip through space and time and come through and be like, don't do this or do that.
Yeah.
If you could be an interdimensional alien, you could rip through space time and go back to 1986 and be like Hugh Jones.
Yeah.
Like, in the future, these drums are going to be a little bit too like, for your ears.
I could do that. I don't know that
he could take it or leave it. He could take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Then you just...
I might smack him around.
You just go back where you came from.
Yeah. Well, but like I've got to say, I think one of my overall... we talked a little bit... I want to talk a little bit about the Uncle Tupelo kind of... like how I parse it versus Uncle Tupelo.
You will not shut up about Uncle Tupelo.
I just feel like it's going to be a point of reference for me. I might bring up Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead.
oh, well, okay. Da-ding, da-ding, da-ding. Everybody who's betting on that out there on one of those betting apps where you're backtracking, like, will
Our
they mention
sponsor,
Johnny
Kalshi. No, so, all right, so I want to actually bring it back to Gang of Youths. When I was listening we just got finished with Gang of Youths, and when I was listening to this lyrically and vocally, I was just like, God, the lyrical content, the tone of this, and the way of singing is so Gen X. This is like exactly like like the young kid. What was it like listening to music in, the early 90s or so? You know what I mean? With like Slackers and stuff. It just hits on like so many elements of that. The way his voice sounds, he isn't talking about love so much. He's talking about his friends. There's a lot of like loneliness and a lot of the sense of I'm walking around with nothing to do and I wish I could just leave this town, or why don't I just leave this town? You know what I mean? And that is a very Gen X kind of a thing, but he doesn't do it in this really heart yearny, like, let me bleed for you way. Whereas like Gang of Youths, I was like, we spent a lot of time last week talking about how difficult it was for Gen X ears to listen to that much earnestness. I think if you want to know what Gen X ears are like, listen to this album.
This is the key word: acceptance, resignation.
Yeah, resignation.
Resignation. Like, I think that is a difference between those two vocalists. Like, in Gang of Youths, David.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I got it right.
Yeah.
He emotes and he feels like he's in the fight, you know?
That's right.
And this sounds a little more like ultimately it's like defeated a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know that that's 100% true though. I'm thinking about like,
I don't even mean the specific expressions. It's just the overall aesthetic. It's just, this nails that. Both the feelings that were popular to articulate within that kind of culture, and also the tone of the articulation, and the lyrics aren't like that earnest. I mean, they express those things, but they do it in a pretty short, pretty vague way. You know what I mean?
A very poetic way.
No. But whereas like Gang of Youths, it's really like, let me tell you exactly how my feelings are. You know?
Yeah. Total. I mean, to me, like this type of lyric is more of the lyric that I'm interested in. I like the mystery lyrics. I like the, kind of like just cool images, but they kind of add up to something, but you have to kind of like participate in it, in order to get the satisfaction or whatever. So, Gang of Youths was more like, no, let's sit down and I'm going to tell you this whole, story. Like, there isn't dialogue in that. Like, it's just kind of, you just listen.
Yeah.
So, and not that there's anything against that, but it's just a different listening experience if you, if you're into lyrics.
Yeah. It
I want to tell
me
you something.
What a contrast in this is Gen X, that is like we are Gen X listening to that, and that felt like the big tension. You know what I mean?
This is why it's a huge album for me. Like, I was 15 years old, I think, when I heard this album for the first time, maybe 16. It was 1988.
Yeah.
And
you're walking along, the mean streets, like
walking along the railroad tracks, like walking to school, small
Sony
town.
Sports Walkman on.
Hell yeah, I had a paper route, like listening to my cassettes, like
no way anyone could reach you. No one knew where you were.
So I have to tell you something. I have to tell you something that just came up. I was talking to Mrs. Hall. Yeah. And I was telling her how, like, we're gonna do Dumptruck for the country. Like, for her, this is not a top 5 album of any kind, but she may have introduced me to Dumptruck because we're from the same hard scrabble hometown, 50 miles east of Pittsburgh, up in the hills, Allegheny Plateau, across the Conemaugh, along the Katanning Path.
Are you going to name it, or is this a geography test?
Some call it Stewartsville, after its most famous resident.
Yeah.
The famous actor Jimmy Stewart. But most call it, confusingly, for those outside of this 50-mile radius, Indiana.
Indiana, PA.
It's the town of Indiana, Pennsylvania. My wife and I are both from there, Mrs. Hall.
Yeah.
So I was talking to her about the album, and she was kind of like, oh, that's nice, whatever. And the thing that I remember is when I was 15, 16 years old. She gave me a mixtape. Her brother was a DJ at the local college radio station, WIUP.
Now, this was a mixtape of an expression of kind of puppy love.
Oh, heck yes. Yeah, there was puppy love when we were puppies.
Yeah.
So she made me a mixtape, and it had Going Nowhere on it. But she had counted wrong, and she mislabeled everything. So for a long time, I thought that song was by Lloyd Cole and the Commotions. Who are a British band who I would love to cover their first album on a future episode of Backtracking. But anyway.
All right. Wow.
So that was like ringing some bells in there. So I'm not sure if that happened or if I heard it on the radio or what. But anyway, they entered my radar. I go to the local record store, Backstreet Records, in the Regency Mall, the old mall. Backstreet Records is now resurrected in a different location, I'm told.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was in the Regency Mall. I go in there, and I remember seeing the album cover. Now, I know we're going to cover the cover.
Yeah, we've got to. Michael demands it. He pays for
Michael,
it.
hang on just for a little bit. We're going to cover the cover. But I saw the cover somewhere. Local record store, I think, had it up on a wall or something. And I was talking to the record guy who I knew, but I never learned his name then, and I don't know it now.
Yeah.
But I talked to him a million times, and he was like, the guitar player for this band's from Johnstown. Yeah. And I was like, what? Like, Johnstown, just a Johnstown band? And it's like, no, they're from up in Boston, but over in Johnstown. Hey. So anyway, we had a whole conversation. Kevin Salem, who is the guitar player on this album, is from Johnstown. That's where he's from. So the guy knew what he was talking about, like record store clerks everywhere know what the fuck they're talking about. Listen to him, people. Hey, I know record store day has already passed, but, go to your local record store. It's fun. Get one of those turntables, even if it's one of those self-contained, whatever. It's not a couple hundred, steal it. I don't, it's fun. Come on.
Yeah.
Participate.
Yeah.
Let's
record stores.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen. All right. So where were we? We were talking about, I didn't even remember. We were talking about how you discovered Dumptruck. I don't remember. No, Gen
I don't
X.
remember
We were
either.
talking about Gen X.
Yeah,
right,
you know.
This is going to be the last time I'll talk about Tupelo, okay?
All right.
It definitely feels like tonally, really, it feels so similar to me in so many ways.
Yeah,
like the tone of how the band plays. And I think one of the things that strikes me about Dumptruck, that always strikes me about Tupelo, especially like the albums other than the March 16th album, is how much it seems like they would be a great live bar band.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? You can just hear that on the album, and you can hear that in this Dumptruck album. It just sounds like this band is probably great live.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when they hit, they hit hard. The version of this album that's out there on Spotify has a bunch of B-sides, demos, and a couple live tracks, which I think have been on reissues of the album. And so there are a couple of live tracks, and, faithful to the originals, and they sound, good, and I'm sure they would sound great, live, like loud.
Yeah.
They definitely come from punk, ultimately a punk place where it's just like big and loud and just strumming those guitars hard. Not that this whole album is like that, which I think the diversity of sound of this album is what drew me to it as a whole. Like it does hit hard when it hits hard, but they also, dabble in more acoustic kind of textures and, so it's not just that. But I think Dumptruck as a whole, like especially if you listen to the earlier albums and then the later albums as well, like they've got more of like a rock and bar band kind of vibe to them. than they do here. Like, and that's why I say that like the production and this particular lineup matter, for them to achieve this sound, because there's a sophistication to it. I would say that, I would not say applies to early Tupelo, the rawness has been extracted, but where sometimes that blunts a band, I feel like it made this band shine, at least this version of the band with this batch of songs, which is not insignificant. But, like Seth Tiven was given a choice, basically like make this album with a quickie lineup or abandon Dumptruck altogether, and he rose to the fucking occasion. Like that. That's what I think this album is a celebration of for me, especially now knowing the whole story of it and everything. But to 15-year-old me, it spoke to me, because like lyrically and emotionally, like it felt like my inner world, it felt like,
in a lot of ways more than like Tupelo would, right? I think one of the things, when we're talking about like, I think, why are Tupelo kind of so closely associated with the kind of, alt country movement or whatever? I think it's there is this kind of like ruralness, countryness in the lyrical content frequently.
Well, they really incorporated the traditional element. Like the Carter family style country element. Yeah. Like you don't hear that in Dumptruck. Like this is just a texture, like, whereas these songs, you could do them in different styles and make them sound different ways, I think, if you really wanted to. But like for this album, it's got that country overlay to it. Yeah. Like future Dumptruck albums and past Dumptruck albums do not.
Oh, really?
They don't have this. I mean, they do some country-ish stuff, but it's more in a bar band style, and it's just one of, the post-punky thing or more of a folk kind of thing. Or see, these are the corporations. They're calling. They're like, AT&T's like, I'm president of AT&T wants to give you a deal to do. No, like I want to be able to say what I got to say about this album, so
no, just keep
listen,
going.
This is the thing, I love Tupelo and I can talk about them all fucking day, but I don't want to put like too hard an emphasis on Dumptruck's influence on them, because I do feel like, not only did Dumptruck didn't invent this per se, like there were other bands around that were doing country-ish licks, or even like the Meat Puppets, or bands that just had a little bit of CCR or whatever kind of country style to them around this time. And so I don't think there's a direct line per se, but I will say that Dumptruck, they were a Boston band. They were on the scene. They were their players were in other bands, and they were in different studios and whatever. And there was a studio, Fort Apache, which started in Boston, and Tupelo's first two albums were recorded there. So
really?
Take from that what you will. I didn't draw the line, but if you're going to draw the line, then that's your business. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Wow. I think you've really done it. J. William Hall, this was your time to shine. You stepped up to the plate. You took a swing, and boom.
Listen, this is what Seth Tiven did with this album with Dumptruck, just as a band, as a project, like he elevated his game and rose this album to the levels where we're talking about like, they could start opening for Simple Minds. They could start opening for U2, like that kind of level, Yeah. And then everything fell apart. But that's, part of the interview and part of the postscript, I guess, of this album, which had a unceremoniously short-lived run, I would say, on college radio. And then it kind of, Dumptruck disappeared for a number of years, and long enough that other movements came and then we got into Manchester and grunge and Dumptruck did come back in a completely kind of altered formation with Seth Tiven still at the lead, and they, you know, it's his song, so like it still has that part of, you know, a big part of the DNA. So if you like these songs, then you will like the other Dumptruck albums. But the sound is, you know, different because it's different players and, you know, recorded differently and whatever.
Yeah.
So his influences have evolved over time. So, you know, I think
listen.
Anyway,
we just can't put this off any farther any longer.
Yeah.
You're going to talk about all of the issues around the release of this album in the interview with Seth Tiven. And then maybe in the third episode on side B, you can talk about it a little bit just so, you know, we say it. But I think we should get into the track by track. I think it's definitely time.
All right, let's do it.
You want to announce it because this is your baby?
All right, my baby. It's track 1, side 1. The song is, in J. William Hall's estimation, the Dumptruck anthem. It's Island.
Can't you see? Just go away. A million miles between us. Can't get out of our own way.
Wow. J. William Hall, that was terrific.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen.
It's a very strong opening song.
It's a strong opening song but it's not a strong opening song that, like, you know, starts with like a big chord or a big hit. It kind of, you know, sneaks into that first song.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's like, you know, you think of 1987 album like The Joshua Tree, where you have Where the Streets Have No Name, that, you know, comes in with like the low, you know, like it takes a while. Like, you know, they weren't afraid in 1987 in alternative rock to take a fucking half minute or whatever to get into the goddamn song. Like,
that's right.
You know, music nowadays are like, oh, we got to hit them with the chorus, you know, at least twice before 30 seconds have passed in the song. It's like, no, you don't. Like, you know, create some atmosphere, create some fucking tone. Like, ease me into it, motherfucker. Like, get my ears ready for this listening experience if I'm going to take the time to listen to. They did that with this song. It's a great song, but I want to hear what you think, because this was kind of new to you, right?
Yeah, it was totally new to me. And it took me a few listens to, I think, really unlock the album. But I think this is a good opener. When I heard the tone of the guitar and those couple of chords that are played, it reminded me of something, and it still, every time I listen to it, reminds me of something. Unfortunately,
or maybe that thing reminds you of this.
It could be. I can't place it though, so unfortunately I can't share it. But I think one of the things that I like about this album, I'm going to bring up a couple of times, there are some instruments and elements very deep in the mix that really add something. They're not front of mind, but I think the Hammond on this track really is that thing.
Yes, and that's a session player, famous musician in England, Tommy Iyer. Or I hope I'm pronouncing that correct.
Yeah.
Iyer. Good old Tommy Iyer on the pipe organ. Like something like that. So he's a session dude, like a ace player. You know, he has played with, but you know, I think more on the British scene or whatever. But anyway, Hugh Jones, undoubtedly the producer, like he knew some fucking people or whatever. He said, hey, you know, brought him in, and he does the Hammond on this, and hell yeah, it adds to it. Like
it really adds, but it is not like you compare it to like Felt, where like every element.
Yeah,
but I think it's also true about like everything in the mix on that album is right there. There really is not much that's like kind of deep in the mix, not intended to be really like heard
Yeah.
exactly. It just
Well, I
kind of
think-
adds flavor. And,
I think
and-
that
and-
was meant as like a live, that is how they played it live. Like,
Yeah.
and this I think is meant to be more, they're capturing a live sound. Like, I don't think this was, far off
Yeah.
from their live sound, but I don't think they had a Hammond organ player playing
Yeah,
with them
yeah.
live either, so like minus the organ, like that was added as like texture, but it adds a lot to the song because it's very rich sounding.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that like sometimes I don't like about especially early REM is because it's so jangly, it can be a little like shrill or something and cold. And the Hammond really like warms this song up. It gives it a
And-
just like a warmth. But like
And I'm
there is
pretty
no
sure
que-
it's a texture that they did not have prior
Yeah.
to this album. Like that's like an element of the like upping their game kind of thing,
Sure, but like the this is really, you can hear it from the first song. You're like, even though it has this warmth and there's some depth to the production and stuff, you're like, oh, this is like a live tune. You can imagine these guys playing this in a bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
I
from
mean,
a songwriting
yeah.
perspective, not a tone perspective, right? Like it has that in the same way that like, Tupelo's loose string kind of has that feel, for example.
Well,
You know what
first
I
of all,
mean?
that's Sunvolt. That's not
Oh,
Tupelo.
I'm sorry.
But,
I'm sorry.
But second of all, you're correct. Like that's more or less like, we're presenting this as a live band, not as a
Yeah.
studio experiment. Like,
Yeah.
And that's true of all the songs on this album. They're like idealized versions, live versions of the tunes,
Yeah, yeah. I the other thing that struck me a little bit about the song is the vocals really drag in the chorus. Seth really sings kind of like behind quite a bit, and it to the point that I noted it. You know what I mean? And it isn't something that he does throughout. That's not his style of singing, like necessarily. He does that very specifically in the chorus here. So I don't know. I noted that, but like, yeah, I think
don't
it's
know
a
if
really
he-
good opener.
I don't know if we remember if we asked him if like did he sing it live, like was it recorded
Yeah.
as a live take or was it overdubbed or whatever, like I don't remember, but so I don't know why it feels slow. Like I think there are, it doesn't feel like they recorded this to a metronome. Like it that's really the thing. It feels like a live track, and I think the tempo kind of maybe like
Yeah, they do that a
isn't-
few times, which I love.
Yeah. So, but
So I
it's
wanna
a
talk
big
about the
epic
lyrics a
opener,
little bit.
Yeah, lyrics. Let's get
Can
into
we talk
it.
about the lyrics? Like, okay,
Let's
so
do it. We haven't yet.
I know, and you've said you've laid it down. You like this style of lyrics, but they are not super specific, and probably because we did the interview and like I know all this backstory about the band. I really felt like this song is about. It's like an alienation song, like I think most of the songs on the album are. But I was like, is this about the former member that left?
I don't think we asked that specifically of
No.
him. I think some of these songs were written before Kirk Swan left the band.
Yeah.
So I would. It's not like I think his shadow looms in this at all. Like I think these are just songs that Seth wrote about, different relationships, different friends. I don't know that any of them are directed directly at Kirk, because I think, these were, some of these songs are even in demo form now on reissues of the previous album. So
Oh,
I think
really?
like Kirk Swan was even maybe involved, I don't know, in some
Yeah.
of the early versions of these. But I, I'll find out when we listen to our own interview with Seth Tiven, whether we asked him, if anything was about Kirk or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's I think remarkable about these songs, at least from my read, the lyrics of these songs is there are none of these songs that strike me to be specifically like love songs or like, about like a love relationship. They all kind of seem to be about friends and alienation from friends, and then like place and alienation from place, kind of.
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's kind of like, young man's disgruntlement. Like, between the ages of whatever, 16 and 20,
Yeah.
3, you have to be disgruntled about like, where you're at, in life.
It's
and
a
where
generalized
things,
disgruntledness too. It's not
Sure,
like a
yeah,
specific disgruntledness.
Right, it's just kind of like the world stacked against me kind of feeling. And like we laugh or whatever now, like,
Yeah.
But that feeling is real,
Yeah,
and
sure.
I think that's what drew me to this album, as
Yeah.
a young disgruntled man. I was like, man, get off my island. Yeah. Like I know what that fucking means. You know what I mean? It's like a different spin on, Simon and Garfunkel. I am a rock.
Yeah, sure.
I am an it's like, but it's presented in this kind of like, humph, like sort of defiance that, this is more like, get off my island, get off my fucking island.
So do you feel with these lyrics? This is probably a generalized comment, but do they hit you in the same way today, or do they hit you today because you remember the way they hit you when you first?
Well,
listened
I'll
to
tell
the
you
album?
this, like, like I never saw the lyrics. Well, I can't remember if they were in the booklet for the album. They might have been in the album, like, insert or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I didn't understand or think about them as I thought about them differently back then, if at all. But just certain lines or certain phrases or whatever stuck with me. And so it's like I could sing along to these songs, but then when I saw the lyrics for real,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, like reading them, hits me differently now. Like,
Yeah.
so because I didn't understand, what some of them
okay.
were, and I didn't, think about them in terms of like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think that they're vague enough that they could apply to all kinds of things, but against your own will, too many empty spaces I can't seem to fill. Like, what does that mean? But it's like, does that apply to me? I think it does apply to me, like,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's kind of like a style of lyric, like as opposed to Gang of Youths or, even somebody, I don't know, just some lyricists are more overt about what they're talking about,
Yeah,
this
but
is more
tonally
like,
it's consistent. They're overt. It's hard to say specifically what he's writing about, I think, frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But tonally, I think you
the
wouldn't
phrase,
mistake these for happy lyrics. I mean, this is not
get off my island. in what happy scenario would that phrase happen? Like obviously it's an unhappy scenario. But I think that that's what's powerful about it is like you could apply that to any unhappiness in your life, and make it work.
Yeah.
So, and I think like, his style of singing, he's emotive enough that he expresses that through how he's singing it. It's angst. It's like, disappointment kind of like expressed through song, and so as a young person, I definitely felt those feelings, and so I was kind of like, fuck yeah, get off my fucking island, get the fuck off.
All right, so should we move on to the next track here?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to do this one. You ready? It is 50 miles, 4 minutes and 16. Let's go.
Send out a signal, hope that it gets through. Where did we go? Where did we go?
All right, J. William Hall, can you start with the lyrics this time?
Yeah. So I mean, these lyrics paint a picture of somebody trapped. I mean, it starts in the first line, on top of a mountain, waiting for the snow. Something should happen. Who would know? Send out a signal. Hope that it gets through. Where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? So it's a situation where somebody is literally like
abandoned on a mountain.
Yeah, they're in danger, far away, and can't get to help. You know? So
are they going to have to eat the other people that they're with?
Right. Is this a Donner Party type of situation? But
I know. Let's hope not.
Well, listen, like we're joking about it, but like we kind of learned in the interview what like probably the seed of this song was, which is not a funny matter. So, wait for the interview and you'll hear.
That's right.
Yes. But so he said that was the seed, an incident happened with one of Seth's old friends where, he literally lost his life on like a camping, hiking kind of situation. So he said that was probably the seed of this song, but of course it kind of, grew and mutated over time. So I don't know that it's explicitly about that, but it's about a person trapped in a situation where help is nowhere, nearby.
Yeah. Now, where did the line "call it an inspiration" I thought was a little confounding within the lyric.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like two songs that are sort of like rammed together, which I can't remember if he said that that's sort of how the song came together, but it feels like that second section where it almost switches into more of like a major key. It feels almost like more positive. And he says, call it an inspiration, how that it relates exactly to the first situation of desperation.
Yeah. But it's a very evocative single line. You know what I mean? So it's like it's super memorable.
Yeah, now, sing-along line.
The lyric or the music for this one, it has this kind of two-chord verse. And there really is like a kind of a punk sinisterness to it.
Yeah. This is definitely brings like more of a dark, like post-punk. Like this is like a stomper, like it feels a little bit like a Prove It kind of like performance.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And feels like a second song in a set.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's interesting that they placed it here.
Yeah, they lay out sort of they lay out the band in the first song, like this is what, is coming, and then they kind of like hit you in the face with the second song. Yeah.
All right, so I have to mention this. It has this wild guitar jam kind of bridge solo thing.
Yes.
And the song ends there.
Yes. Kind of abruptly.
In a great way. That I think matches the tone of the rest of the song. It's just like a great way.
Right.
But then they come back in and just do a fade out, which I'm going to have an issue with, right? They already finished the song. Why come back in and fade out that bit?
Right. That might be a controversial move, especially for a track 2 on the album. I don't have a good defense, I would say, of that section, except that call it an inspiration part of the song is such a big sing-along, thing that I could picture an arena singing along to that. So that would be a great way to end it on more of an uplifting note.
Yeah. Well, listen,
Maybe that uplifting part is the rescue.
I loved
comes.
the end.
You loved which end?
I loved the guitar jam.
Oh, the jam
sudden.
Okay, well let me tell you this.
Sudden stop.
Let me tell you this. When I was backtracking the album this week, in the kitchen while we were making dinner, Mrs. Hall made me skip when it got to the jam out part. She was like, skip this. She did not like the jam out. I don't know if this is music for
women,
for girls. I don't know if this is music for women or girls. I don't know. Yeah. This song, that jam out part, maybe that's just like that's a primal, Like,
well, you know what? Way to
male,
go
like, freak
for
out.
way to go offending 3% of our audience.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to that 3%. I feel bad. That was a generalization. In the era of Gen X, that would have been just fine. I
Yeah,
understand the times have changed.
All right, so the real joke there, of course, being that we only have 3% of our audience that's women. All right, so
They still matter.
they do. They matter more than the other 97%.
I hope to grow
in my
that
opinion.
percent. That's my goal. That's my goal for this fiscal year. I want to grow that percentage.
You're being bonused on that metric, and you know what? You're going to go after it. That's a
right.
KPI that is
That's
valuable.
Exactly. Exactly.
Good going. Good going. All right, so why don't we move on to the next tune, Friends. 3 minutes and
Yes.
31 seconds. Let's go.
There's a difference in the way I feel today. What are friends for anyway?
All right, I hate to say it. It's another loneliness tune lyric.
Well, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are 16 years old and you're growing up in hard scrabble, down on its luck, blue-collar town about 50 miles east of Pittsburgh, PA, this song hits hard. Like, this is a song that questions your bonds with your closest allies.
yeah.
Like, how
Yeah.
lonely is that? How lonely
Yeah.
is that? And I
Yeah.
think, like, coming off of the big, freak out rocker at the end of 50 Miles, this one really, it's kind of like a counterpunch, like it kind of hits in a different
Yeah.
way. And I think it's great.
Now, it sounds like these lyrics really resonated for you.
Oh,
Now,
for
which
sure.
are your friends? Do you want to name them now? Which are the ones that you felt like? I think now's the time.
Matt,
There was
Jeremy,
Matt?
Mark, Jeff, Paul, Arun, JJ, Yanni, Hank, Jen, Mindy, Marla, Terry, Rusty. It could go on and on.
Wow, guys! I think maybe you need to work through. You didn't know
No,
that
on-
J. William
well,
Hall was walking around with this Walkman, thinking,
No, I will tell you that back in the day, I don't think I understood, what exactly he was expressing here. But I just really
Yeah.
like the song. I think it's a beautiful song. This is definitely a very REM-esque.
Very
kind of-
REM.
This is like a
such jangle.
Fables
here.
of the Reconstruction kind of like folk jangle
Yeah.
kind of thing. I mean, the thing about this album, which, we need to, place some emphasis on.
Yeah,
Kevin Salem's guitar playing
yeah,
on this album is fucking immaculate.
yeah.
And he had only been in the band for a few months. Like,
Yeah.
I think, he is sort of, a somewhat forgotten figure. I think in the 90s he had some solo albums that were out, I think on maybe Roadrunner Records, New York City based guy. He played with Freddie Johnston. He played,
Yeah, Freddie Johnston, like on all those Freddie, and you can
Yeah.
kind of hear the connection between a
Yes.
song like this and Freddie Johnston.
Oh yeah,
you know?
now that you know that,
Yeah.
you know the connection, like you can definitely, draw that line.
Yeah.
And I think he was a beautiful counterpoint to Seth Tiven's playing,
Yeah.
which comes from the more post-punk kind of just, I think he's more of a strummer probably,
Yeah.
a little more of a kind of like angry slop sort of player.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin Salem was more of a meticulous, that was
Yeah.
just his style. And so I think the two styles mesh really beautifully, and the interplay between the guitars on, this amongst other songs is just awesome. And I'm sure Hugh Jones, probably had something to do with like, here's
Yeah.
the best way to stage this,
Yeah.
But I think the guitar playing throughout this album is just phenomenal, and this song is just one example.
Yeah, and I like the softer tone of this as the third track, especially after 50 Miles, which is much more aggro.
And honestly, probably the most aggro moment on the album, really, the end of 50 Miles.
I just feel like this album. I'm interested. You had said to me previously that there may be a J. William Hall backtrack. Of this, but and we're gonna look forward to that. But I actually think that the sequencing of this album is really good, but it really reminds me of how a band that plays live a lot would put together their live set.
Yeah,
it just feels like a live set.
And like I admit it has a huge influence on how I think about albums now. Like still thinking about like side A, side B, you sequence it in such a way that it, rides these waves or whatever. And, and this album follows that to a T. So for all of you young folk who want to know what it was like in Gen X, you want to hear what a primo Gen X album sounds like.
Yeah.
Dumptruck for the country. You could do a lot worse is all I'm saying.
All right, so though one other thing I wanted to mention about this one, again, in the name of like very low in the mix, interesting choices on here, there's a xylophone in the back of this one, and it's such an unexpected touch. It's just so surprising given the way the band sounds.
Yes, like I mean, this is a production choice. Like this is. I mean, someone in the band could have thought of it, but like, they upped their production game certainly from the first album to the second, but it's like they upped it again, like for this one, and I just feel like it's so perfect for this song, and it sets it apart from everything else on the album. I think that is an important thing for any guitar centric band, traditional rock combo, guitar bass drums, is the core of the sound. Like having enough variation, to make an album not feel monotonous and samey. Yeah. You got to have instrument variation. You've got to add little touches, even if you can't, reproduce it live. But, I also understand that, I think some bands feel like the live thing is the thing. That's it. Yeah. So it's just different choices. But I do think that is a good example of like those little details that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, listen, are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. What is this? The fourth track? Track 4, Carefree. 3 minutes and 4 seconds. Let's go.
Used to know people living there. Now they're gone, and I guess that I don't care. It gets so hard to take Carefree.
All right, I have just got to say, J. William Hall, these are very Gen X lyrics. This is the classic kicking around this rundown town lyric, right?
Well, I will say that I'm pretty sure this is like an older song because this had been kicking around since the Positively days, at least, because there's a demo version on the Positively reissue. Yeah. So I do think this has been kicking around. So this does feel more like a young man's kind of, but Gen X for sure. Like the kids these days, they don't just like, walk around like just bummed out, like bored,
Like, but and the use of Carefree as the name and how it's used in these lyrics is so Gen X. It's like, I'm totally carefree, like, you know what I mean? It's like, sure, carefree. Asshole.
Yeah, sarcastic, and I had said something to him in the interview about the jauntiness of it or whatever, and he said they called it the leprechaun. I feel like they called it like the leprechaun lick or something. It seems like a dancing leprechaun.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very Celtic feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. It now that that's pointed out to me, I can't unhear it. So, but it's a tasty lick, and it's sort of like the hook that ties the song together. And there's a lot of nifty start-stop kind of stuff for the whole band. You know, so they're tight. Like I mean, you can tell this is a live band. Like, or at least it sounds like one.
It totally sounds like a good live band in a certain kind of venue. I literally had the as I was listening to it, I pictured myself in lounge acts.
Oh yeah. I mean, this has an alt country-ish sort of appeal. I would say, you know, like I could hear in lounge acts or you know, any of those 90s the Chicago haunts. You know, I mean, that was the sound of
so
that
many
moment.
of those
like,
great Chicago haunts.
This album was 5 to 7 years too soon.
Yeah,
is really the, you know, I was surprised because they did come back. You know, they came back with subsequent albums in the 90s once their legal troubles were kind of settled.
But they were in Austin at that point, right?
Yeah, they had moved. Seth had moved to Austin, and the band was centered there, and so it was different players, you know, and it changed the texture or whatever the band. But I was surprised that they weren't re-embraced, I guess, like, you know, given that the prevailing sound of the time was alt country, or that was one of the big, you know, marketable sounds of the time. It felt, I mean, maybe there were too many of those type of bands at that point.
Yeah.
And Dumptruck felt like an afterthought, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, all
right.
But Carefree does have that feel. It's got a little bit of the shit kicker feel. You know, great guitar. I think Kevin Salem, I'm not 100% certain because I don't know who exactly played what. But there are a lot of these really just tasty little country licks, just like sprinkled throughout here and there. Really subtle, but it makes the whole thing just sound so much more kind of professional and sharp and you know, it's not intrusive at all. Like, it's really smooth. Yeah. And I think that is, I have a feeling that that's one of the things he brought, you know, to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, listen, should we move on?
Yes, I also want to point out that at the end of this song, there's sort of like a production-y thing where he took like part of a guitar and put it backwards, and it has this kind of like psychedelic fade-out sort of vibe. But it adds to the overall feel of the album, I think. Yeah.
All right, so listen, we're going to move on. Brush Me Back, 2 minutes and 31 seconds. It is worth mentioning that all of these songs are pretty short.
Yes, it's a zippy album, really.
It is pretty zippy. All right, so why don't we just give it a listen, zip through this, 2 minutes 31, let's go.
Brush me back, tie my hands. Time for me to make a stand, my friend. Where's it going to end?
All right, come on. J. William Hall, this is another I want to get out of this town song.
Hey, that feeling is real.
It is. I had it.
That feeling is valid.
Yeah. I had it. I mean, I grew up in Buffalo in the 80s and 90s. I mean, that was no walk in the park.
Hey,
like,
Buffalo's the big city, exotic, Niagara Falls, vacation land. Buffalo must be a paradise.
I don't think anybody ever said that.
In Indiana, PA, we were saying it. We were dreaming of Buffalo, spring break. I hope we can get there.
You know what? You spent at least one spring break at
I did.
Buffalo.
And eventually I got there. I got to see Buffalo in the spring. Glorious. Yeah. Anyway. Yes.
All right, but this is another. The other thing that I thought was interesting is he talks in these lyrics about wanting to go down to Mexico. And where is Seth now? New Mexico.
It's true. It's true. I do wonder if that was a subconscious pool.
It is the power of visualizing right there.
Yes. Make it happen.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All right. So, but those were my feelings about the lyrics here.
Yeah, he mentions friends again. He
Yeah.
he mentions Mexico, people driving him insane. He's
Yeah.
talking about the worst of this town, just
Yeah.
feeling down, and he wants to get out of town. And I think that the thing that sort of accentuates this song on the album is it's like a slide kind of dobro kind of style guitar.
Yeah.
Like this is I think it's just like brush drums, like real light drums. Like, so it's like they made a few different production choices and jimmied the instrumentation just a little, and it's a standout song. It's its own thing. But
Yeah.
it's short, it's sweet, tells a little story. It leaves a lot of details vague.
And
know.
it's I like the kind of mid-tempo groove to this. The songs are I think relatively big, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of does take it down a little bit. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
at this point in the set, that's kind of what you'd want, right? If you were playing live.
Yeah, like I don't think that this one translates to the arena, but I think that was honestly who Dumptruck was. It's like
Yeah.
they had some songs that could kind of hit big like that, but they had some songs that were pretty intimate, soft. Like I would hear this kind of influence in more. This is more of a Scud Mountain Boys, style song, like
Yeah.
acoustic, like soft, still a downer, like still kind of downbeat, but really tastefully played. Lots of little country licks and stuff, but like pretty unassuming,
Yep. I can't believe it, J. William Hall, but we are already on the final song on side A.
Right.
And it's only been, I don't know, 2.5 hours.
Someone's got some editing to do. Well, it's alongside Hung Out on a Line, track 6.
Track 6.
They squeezed 6 onto a side.
All right, 4 minutes and 9 seconds. Let's give it a listen.
Not much to remember. You'd sooner forget. Turn yourself upside down. You're not finished yet. There's no getting over that restless decline. Halfway abandoned, hung out on a line.
So, I don't know. For me, this song, you were talking about kind of the guitar, the very kind of tasteful country guitar licks. This chorus is really Nashville. Nashville, like the polished Nashville in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one features the studio ace, good old Tommy Ayers. Ayers. Famous British session ace coming in on the organ, making it swing, making it have a certain feeling.
Yeah.
From the opening lick, the opening guitar lick, that high, like deedle 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 deedle, like he just, it's so smooth. Like everything about this song, compare it to the first two albums, which are a little more raw, a little rougher around the edges. Makes a difference.
Yeah. And the hung out on a line refrain, it's a great line. But lyrically beyond that, it's tonal for me. It's hard to really say too much about it other than you get a little bit of this abandonment vibe.
Yeah, I think this is a great band song. Like the entire band is very together, like they're really rising and falling throughout this song. There's some starts and some stops.
Yep.
You know, it's the end of a side, and it feels a little bit like the end of a set or the end of set one, you know, or the end of a shift, or, you know, it's setting the stage. It's letting us down with a final beer before side two kicks in.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, is there more to say about this one, or should we just call it and prepare ourselves mentally and spiritually for side B?
I think that I'm ready to call it. I think we have prolonged this long enough.
All right. Well, then let's call it, and let's just tell them that there's only one thing that is required. Number one, go to the Twitter, follow us, Backtracking Rocks ROX, Instagram, Backtracking Rocks ROX. Go to Reddit. We have a user account there that's Backtracking Rocks ROX. You can email us at backtrackingrocks@gmail.com. Follow, like, give us a review. Why not give us a review? You know, 5 stars. This
Be
was
honest.
great.
Like, be honest about the 5 stars. I mean, when you describe it, seriously tell us the 5-star amount of like that you have for us, because it's important.
Yeah.
And, you know, the algorithms are always out there. They're always watching.
They're watching.
The eyes.
They're watching.
Eyes
Yeah.
everywhere you look. And
All right.
so, yeah.
You got to do it. Just give us the review. But Jay William,
Hey,
I want to thank you for introducing me to side B of side A of Dumptruck's album. Next week,
Welcome to
Seth
Backtracking,
Tiven
the show
interview.
where
It
three
is
old
an
friends
incredible
take a
interview. He
second
tells
listen
us
to classic
everything about the
bands,
band. I think it'll be the
influential
definitive
albums,
interview
track by
of
track.
Seth
They're
Tiven.
taking this journey together, providing
you know,
context,
maybe it will,
both
maybe it
personal
won't,
and
but
historical
return,
on
dear
some
listener,
legendary
and find out for
bands.
yourself.
Throughout
That's
their
right. And then we're going to
seasons,
cover
we've selected
side B
15
after
of our
that. So we
favorite
got 2 more
albums that
weeks of
we
Dump
think
Truck.
deserve a
So
good
until then, Jay William Hall, as always, thank you.
No, thank you, Dan.
Backtracking is
All
the
right,
greatest
bye.
podcast. Raph and JW and Dan make this podcast every week. Backtracking is the greatest podcast. Get ready for podcast action.